I'm like, don't. So we are live, and I'm getting an echo, which is a little bit frustrating. I don't know if that's me. But what I'll do is I'm just going to share on Facebook and give it a moment for people to join because we are a little bit early.
We're just going
to sit here in silence. I was like, I didn't plan this. What do we do if I start early? Do we just stare at each other for like 2 minutes? I love it. But we're all good. We're all good. I'm just making sure everything is up and running. So we are, let me just double check on Facebook. So much technical stuff. I'm quite impressed with myself, talking about technology. I'm pretty much a technophobe. And I'm actually quite impressed that I'm being able to do all this stuff.
You're way more advanced than me.
Oh, it took a while, but I'm getting there. Good. I think we're live. Everywhere we need to be. There he is. Here's one for you, Helen.
Oh.
Our number one fan is here. Hello, David. Thank you for joining. So good to have you. We'll give it a couple minutes as give people a minute to join us. Okay. Good. I think we're all set. Everything's working. David is here, so we're good to go. And we just need David, and we're all good to go. Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody who's going to watch this either live and join us later, or watch it later on, which I hope people will do. This is going to be all about technology. Helen and I are going to be asking some of the big questions about technology. How we use it, how it affects us. Is it using us, or are we using it? Is it taking us closer to who we are and ourselves as humans, or is it taking us further away? And there'll be all sorts of discussion, and Helen and I can talk about this stuff for probably like 8 hours straight. So we're going to try and tone it down, try and keep it flowing. But what would be great is for people who are watching to bring their questions in. And David already is asking us, can I start now with the questions? Please do. Put them in. Put them in the comments. They would be absolutely fantastic, David. Chuck all your comments and questions into there. But before we begin, let's just do a quick introduction for anyone who doesn't know me. My name is Jangra. I'm a resilience trainer and a one-to-one coach and a consultant. And I'm basically obsessed with the big questions in life. Why are we here? Who are we? How does this work? How do we live our best lives? Why do we struggle? Why do we strive? Why do we flourish? What is it? I don't know. I want to know all the answers. And so I just spend my life pondering these things. Like, this is the stuff that goes around my head all day, every day, about humanity and so on, which is fun, but also quite intense. But I love talking about it. And this is why I love talking to Helen, because we have amazing conversations about this sort of stuff. And I just love pondering. And that's what we're going to do today. So Helen, do you want to give yourself a little introduction?
Sure, I haven't got one as dramatic as that. But having spent most of my life in a corporate world, I left due to burnout and decided actually the people that I want to help are probably high performers, but really learn how to work, love and live on purpose. And for me, that's really about being intentional about what we do, not just letting things happen to us, but actually choosing how we want to live our lives. Because I think too often things just happen, life happens, a month rolls into a year and you go, how did I get here? But I think, much like yourself, the whole idea about there's so much more out there, and that we can feel more fulfilled when we live on purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Living on purpose, living intentionally. Totally agree with you there. Good. All right. So, hey, let's jump in. As we said, this is a very broad topic. It sort of goes into technology, science, but also it's quite philosophical. It's about morals. It's about humans. It's about psychology, our consciousness. And, technology is becoming more and more integrated into our lives in various ways. And, I think there's lots of pros to it, maybe some cons to it, probably quite a few. And also there's a lot of unknowns. And I think that's why we wanted to talk about it, because we ask these questions, because I think we have to play an active role, right, in our lives, and not just take whatever technology is given to us and use it and then get addicted to it and so on, so on. And, I think we have to really sit and ponder sometimes and say, well, hang on, are these things helping us? Are these tools helping us? Are we using them, or are they using us? And I think let's start off with looking at, technology at home, which can be a number of different things. And so if you're in the comments as well, just share what sort of technologies do you use at home? Because I think, I've got quite a lot of tech, but really I've just got laptops, mobiles, iPads and stuff. Not iPads, but I don't want to promote any brands, but I have a pad thing. But other people have like Google things that listen to you, and they activate their lights with their voice and all this sort of stuff, and the fridge orders their shopping or whatever. But how about you, Helen? How are you with technology at home? What sort of stuff do you use in your life?
I'm not massively into it. I'm a bit like yourself, like the whole idea of being able to communicate to a device to say what song you want it to sing, like it just doesn't do it for me. I think I'm very much in this nervousness around what does it mean, and actually, is it making me lazy? Like the fact that I don't have, like if you think about the invention of the remote control, and people are like, what, you don't have to get off the sofa and switch over the TV, and how amazing that was. But I think it really scares me how much you don't actively participate in, and that's a bit too kind of crazy for me.
Yeah, I get that. And I'm really interested in what you're saying there about, is it making us lazy? And it seems so fun that at a click of a button, I can go on Google and search something and just know the answer to it. Or I can, even simple things like, I'm not going to do the maths in my head because I can use a calculator. Or like you say, I'm not going to get up and go somewhere. I'm not going to learn a route that I'm going to drive because I'll just use my Google Maps. And I live by Google Maps, like my sense of directions. I probably couldn't get myself out of this room without getting lost. So, it's really something for me that I find really helpful. But yeah, it gets to the point where you just become really lazy that you can't do some of the basic things. And that is a question to ponder. And is that affecting us in a negative way? Jill, hello, Jill. Thank you for joining us. Lovely to have you. What about you, Jill? David, how are you with your technology relationships at home? What do you use? How do you find it? Is it helping you? One of the things that comes to my mind is my addiction to my mobile, my addiction to social media, which I'm not proud of. And sometimes I really struggle to get out of, where I'm just sitting there and I'm scrolling through stuff that adds nothing to my life a lot of the time. It's not necessarily something that's educational or inspiring. A lot of the time it is, but sometimes it's not. And the thing I find really weird is that I feel like I turn into a zombie. So like I'm staring at my phone and I'm like scroll, and it's like it sucks all my consciousness into it and all my awareness. And then suddenly I look up from him like, oh, here's my life. Here's the real world. Here's what I actually am and, my experience. But I find that social media and phones are very, very interesting in terms of how they really take all of your attention, and often not into good things. When you're scrolling through nonsense, or you're looking at someone's life on social media who you've never met and never will met and doesn't even know you exist. It could be someone on the other side of the planet. And that's not actually natural to us. We were meant to, as human beings, we're meant to be in smaller communities of a few hundred people, where we know people. We are sort of tight-knit communities. That's our natural way of living as social creatures. But now I can go and find out about people's lives all over the world. And it's almost like your brain can't quite handle it. Your consciousness isn't quite adapted for that level of exposure. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know what you think, Helen. We're getting
like you're
loads of
reading
comments.
someone's diary, isn't it? Their personal diary, because they're talking about and like they're actively sharing it, but you're involved in a way that maybe you shouldn't be, because some things about them and not others.
Yeah.
And I think because, we're inclined to kind of make a judgment about what they've chosen to do or where or, how they're going to be, but we don't know them.
Yeah.
We know this version of them. And then, and like you say, like the kind of, what are we doing it for? Because if it's to compare ourselves, that's not helpful, and it's not a complete picture. And
No, it's really
yeah,
unhealthy.
I find it really, really scary. And I think I can't remember where, like, I read something about there being a concern for young children growing up now, because parents look at their phones while they're pushing a pushchair. And so instead of that eye contact, the child is seeing the back of a phone or the top of the parent's head.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's I find that quite
I think
disturbing.
so.
And like you're saying, you're suddenly connected to this wide world instead of noticing what's absolutely around you.
Yeah. And you're not noticing yourself. So I've spent 2
Mm.
hours looking at other people. But what about me? And like you're saying, what's my purpose? What am I doing to better my life? What am I doing to pursue my and create my dreams and my own well-being and my own health? I've just wasted 2 hours on my phone looking
Mm.
at some other person. And like you say, comparing, which is again a total illusion, because what I see on here is an illusion. It's not true reality, because like you say, you don't know that person. You don't know what they're really going through. You don't know how many filters they used on that photo to make themselves look all glossy. And then you think, oh, I'm so ugly in comparison. Well, that might be like a totally touched up photo. And so we're really comparing ourselves to a total illusion. It's not even real, which makes me think it's even more mad, because you're trying to compare yourself against something that doesn't actually exist. What could be more insane than that? We're getting loads of comments through, so I'd love to have a little look at some of these. So Jimmy's here. Hello, Jim. Jim has a desktop, a laptop, a tablet, a mobile, an Alexa, an Amazon Fire Stick, and a sat nav. Okay, you got quite a few things going on there, Jim. Not bad, not bad. Pete is with us. Hello, Pete. Is social media enhancing interpersonal relationships or just creating more superficial ones? What a great question. Let's just see. Should we answer that one first, and then we're going to go to the other
Yeah,
couple?
do
So is social media enhancing interpersonal relationships or just creating more superficial ones? Can I have a go at that first?
it.
I think part of it we've already just answered with the fact that, you're sort of observing people on such an illusory, superficial level, and you don't really know them or know their lives. And even if you start to get to know them online and things, you can have a bit of a relationship. But equally, for me, one of the most amazing things about relating to other humans is to be in the presence of their energy and to see their smile and to feel their presence, because we are energetic beings at the end of the day. And to be around people, I think, is really important. But equally, I know that social media has really revolutionized my life in terms of my relationships, my network. I mean, Helen, I've never even met you face to face. We met through
Mm.
social media, right? And look, here we are. And a lot of my collaborative work at the moment has come through people I've met online that I've actually built really great relationships with. And I hope one day to meet them in person. I don't want it to only ever be on there. So I think really, yeah, that's a fantastic question. So many avenues. Helen, what do you think about that one?
Well, I think absolutely agree with everything you're saying. And I wonder if it's more around motivation, because it's like, what do you want out of the relationship? Because if, like you say, the thing about if you're using social media to connect because it's your only way of connecting, then surely that's a good thing. But if you're doing it just to compare or yeah, and I think you're right about the whole energy, because when you're with someone, you feel their energy in a way that you don't, or I don't think you can, electronically. Um, and maybe it's easier to hold a silence, or, when you're physically with someone. And I think absolutely the point about superficial is, social media, you can tell people what you want them to hear.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
have to be true.
Yeah. And you can be nasty to them because you
Yes,
don't have them looking you
yes,
in the eye. Would you, if you look someone in the eye face to face, would you say the things that you might say to them on social media where you just see their name and their avatar? They're not a
yeah,
real human to you. And that's why I think we get the trolling and the bullying and nasty things that people do, because they forget that that's a human being. And if that human being was stood right in front of you, you would probably think differently about what you say and what you do and how you treat them. So it really gives people an out to unfortunately bring out the lesser parts of their nature
yeah.
onto the screen, and then other people read it. And it's an energy and a consciousness in itself, social media, and it
Mm.
proliferates. And if it's negative and it's superficial, then you jump in and you join that energy. It's like, well, that's not really necessarily very good for you. Let's see what David's saying here. David's saying, I'm trying to cut back on tech. I can easily get lost So really limit myself to social media, just LinkedIn. I think that's awesome, David. You need to give me some tips on limiting my social media. Yeah, absolutely. And I think cut back. And it'd be interesting to know, David, why do you want to cut back? What is it that made you think, I need to cut back? Was there something you were noticing, an adverse effect that it was having? So do share that if you want to. That would be fantastic. And Jill says, how a person defines living with intention varies. Those who live on social media are living with one form of intention. That's interesting.
Well, and that comes to
Yeah.
the point where we were talking about, like, with all of this, who's right and who's wrong. Like, no one's got the right to kind of say my view is the right view. It's whatever's right for somebody else. And I think that links in with Dave's point about making your choice about which social media platform you want to interact with and for how long.
Yeah. And this is a thing that I think goes with everything in life anyway. It's not what you're doing, it's from where you're coming when you're doing it. So you could go on social media from a very dysfunctional place, which is, oh, I'm comparing myself, or I'm bored and I'm wasting time and I'm zombifying my into it, and I'm watching things that are not helpful, or I'm trolling. And that's one place you can come from. Or you can go on it from a good place of functional development of yourself. I'm building great relationships, I'm learning things, I'm connecting with people that I wouldn't normally. I'm building communities on there. So again, whatever we're doing, it's never the tool, it's the person using it. It's never the thing, it's the level of consciousness of the human being creating that thing or using that thing. And this is where my line always comes in, is that around science and technology without wisdom is blind. And I think that's where we do a lot of things. We're not actually wise in our decisions and our interactions, and also in what we're creating with all the new tools. But if you have wisdom and you have discernment and you have self-awareness, then you can see, am I using this tool in a right way, or am I letting it use me? Is it taking me closer to myself? Is it helping me grow? Is it helping me expand? Is it helping me create what I love in my life? Or is it actually really creating more, just like of a tear inside me? Is it taking me more and more away from myself? Which I think is a question that we should all ask. David says social media can only enhance in addition to a real relationship. Yeah, I like that. I use voice notes a lot rather than text. Me too. I'm like, I can't, my thumb hurts after writing 2 words. I'm like, just send a voice note. It's really enhanced some of my LinkedIn connections. Yeah. And it's voice, right? Voice is important. A lot of things can get lost in text, and we're so good at just texting comments, and then the nuance of a conversation is lost. And it's all memes, right? It's all like snapshots, one word, one sentence, and you lose the context. And this is how people get taken out of context, and you lose the message of what's really being communicated, because you just read 2 lines and took that as truth. It's what else is David saying? It's really enhanced my LinkedIn connections. I'd say some have moved to friend status. Now that's lovely. I love that. I agree, David, as well. And I think, again, though, it comes down to, why are you using it? Because David, we know you, and we know that you love people and you love connecting people and you love getting to know people. And so I get the energy, the sense that when you use these tools, you use them from that place. And that's why you're getting a wonderful result out of it. And I think similarly for me, when I use them to connect with people, because I love that, but also then the part of me that uses it to think, oh, I'm not good enough compared to these people, that's my dysfunction. But when you use it from the right place, you can get wonderful results. But this is where you have to be conscious and aware of how you're using these things.
And I guess that's the question to ask yourself, isn't it? How you feel afterwards.
Mm.
How do you feel after that interaction? And is that a way you want to feel? Because we need to keep remembering that this is our choice.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's it. When we're not conscious, we just take what's given and we use it. And because these are addictive, right? They were designed to be addictive. The people who made these actually admitted that they designed
Yeah.
them to be addictive. Social media is designed that way. So you have to take self-mastery and control, and not allow your addictive patterns to get involved, and to really consciously become aware and make choices. David says social media creates noise that can lead to overwhelm. Absolutely, absolutely. And it's the pinging away and the constant feed of it. Again, I'm not sure our brains are designed to handle that much information, and that amount of information and that type of information. I feel like it's like a circuit board in our brain that can just blow, because it's too much, and it's all, I feel like, again, it's unnatural, and I think that's where it can be detrimental and problematic. So yeah, I mean, that goes down a whole nother. I'm going to share one thing with you actually, which I feel should to share right now, which, because I use this word quite a bit: unnatural, natural. What's nature? What is what's natural? And this is something that can actually kind of lead us into the next one as well, which we're going to look at in the moment. Now we're going to look at, if you just find my banner, we're going to look at technology and society and the wider use of technology. And, I Googled, because for me, I mean, maybe I would call myself a humanist. I don't know if that's even a thing. I don't even know what that is. So maybe I shouldn't label myself with something that I don't know what it means. Someone might take that and be like, that's a really bad thing. But I love the power of nature and humans and what we're capable of, our consciousness, our minds, our hearts, our souls. I think we've only touched on a tiny speck of what we're actually capable of with our minds, our brains, our consciousness, and what it can do. And I think that we're very much, we're part of the natural world, right? We are made from nature. We are the same as, we have more in common with the plants and the animals than we do with our phones and our technology. But interestingly, and this I found quite shocking actually and quite worrying, is that if you Google the definition of nature, the top result basically says things like plants, animals, natural landscapes, and then it says as opposed to humans and human creations. Give me a riff on that, Helen. What do you reckon?
I find that really disturbing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's such a move away from us being natural beings to what? To what then?
Yeah, exactly. And it also doesn't make any logical sense because we are animals. We know that. That's not
Mm,
rocket science. I don't need to be Einstein to know that I'm that's what I'm made of,
yeah,
that we are here to live in, is symbiosis the right word? I think with nature, the tree puts out oxygen, which I breathe in. So the tree gives me life. I breathe out carbon dioxide, which the tree takes in, which gives the tree life. So you cannot separate this relationship. It's the core of our existence. And the fact that we're alive relies on it. So to then
mm,
say, well, here's the humans and here's all the nature stuff, two different things, I think can lead us down a very self-destructive road. And I think it's important that we don't let that happen. And we educate ourselves and children and so on to know that we are nature. And technology is a separate thing. It's a tool, and the man-made things are separate tools. But to lose connection with your own nature, I think, is the root of all of our problems. And that's again why we ask this question: is technology taking us closer to ourselves and who we are, or further away? And definitions like that are taking us further away from our nature,
mm.
because we're saying, no, you're not nature. Well, I am. So I don't know what you're talking about or who you think you
What
are.
category do we fall into then? Like
And that's a very big question. What are we then exactly? And that again, people may make their own definitions about that, and people can make some strange definitions about what that
mm,
means. Hazel's joined us. Hello, Hazel. Thank you so much for joining. Let's put Hazel's comment on here. In real life, connecting with and surrounding yourself with people who are good for us and have our best intentions at heart is wonderfully enriching. So we need to be more conscious about who we follow and connect with. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Helen. That's so
mm,
important. And it comes back to that point earlier I think Pete made about superficial relationships, and can you really have an in-depth relationship with someone that you just exchange a few messages with online and they don't really know anything about your life? I don't know, maybe, but to me I think that's really important. Having people around, loneliness is actually a killer. Loneliness is really
mm.
bad. It's really unhealthy. We're social beings, remember? And when I say social, I mean physically social as well. We need hugs, we need to
Yeah,
touch, we
yeah,
need to see eyes, smiles, energy. We're communicating with energy when we don't even realize it. So yeah. Hey, let's go into what we were talking about, Helen, around technology and wider society, which I
mm,
think really goes into the social media thing. Because for me, what that leads into is big tech, big data. which is a very big thing right now. And you know, whether we're looking at the Googles, Amazons, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the WhatsApps, and then move it. I mean, we can go across so many industries, right? Big tech in agriculture, in healthcare, and food production, all this sort of stuff. And it's really taking over our lives, and they're really, you know, all of our infrastructures in society are really governed by these big tech companies, and they have our data, which is a very interesting topic right now. There's a couple of things we can touch on there, but what are your thoughts generally about this? Is anything coming
What
through for you at the moment?
great timing today when the breaking news came out around some big tech companies all lost internet for a while today. And there were some comments coming up about, you know, should they have so much control, because so few companies have so much control, and how disturbing that is. And I think what you're saying absolutely about data is so frightening, because like this morning I was looking through like how many apps I've got, you know, and how many of those have my data, you know, and what we're asked to put our information into, like how much of our information are we giving away and for what purpose?
Mm,
Because once we give it away, it's not ours anymore, is it?
yeah. And I'd love to hear what people think in the comments about data, and privacy of data. It's just come out recently. The word on the street is that our GP NHS data in England is going to be sold. So go and research that. There is an opt-out thing for that. But again,
Mm,
it's that question of, okay, why is that ethical? Is that right? I mean, your personal health data is so incredibly personal. You know, it could be your mental health, your physical health, your sexual health, and basically it's just data to some people. It is, you know, it's a commodity. And for me, the selling of data, we know already, we are, you know, it's the commoditization of a human being. And I think what you were saying, Helen, earlier or yesterday when we were talking about the dehumanization, because we
mm,
just become statistics, numbers, graphs, pound signs, and that's how people who use that data see us. And I think data is the new oil. So this
mm,
grab for data and the scope creep, right? So you look at Facebook and Instagram. First, they're like, "Can we just have your email?" Then they're like, "Oh, can we just have your phone number?" And then they're like, "Oh, can we just access all the apps on your phone? Can we just access all your call records? Can we just know every other device that's on your network? Can we just know?" And they've got so much. And it's that question around like privacy. And also for me, it's the question of what are you doing with it? Because again, it comes back to not the what, but where do you come from? What is the level of consciousness of a person? And, you know, I could have a knife and I can use it to cut food and share food with people, or I could use that knife to hurt someone. And that's where it goes for me. Do I trust the
mm.
people who are collecting all this data and really just making money out of it? What are the ethics of that kind of person? And can it be used in a negative way? So, what do you think about that, Helen?
It scares me beyond measure. And I think the whole thing that you have to opt out rather than opt in makes me really concerned, because they, I don't know who they are, but the whole idea that unless you make a conscious decision to understand exactly what's going on and then opt out, your information's just going to be used.
Yeah.
And we all heard or had examples of, you might have a conversation about learning Japanese, and then suddenly all these adverts come for you that you've never seen before. Like, how does that happen? You know,
Yeah.
that's just beyond disturbing.
Yeah.
And I think what really frightens me about the thing about advertising and having so much of your information is someone else is deciding what you like, because
Mm,
you know you're being told other people like you like this or eat this, and so you're being kind of funneled or channeled into kind of making those choices that someone else has made for you,
very interesting.
because you're being limited about what you see. And I think that's the thing, because for me, I think technology is around ease. Let's make it easy for you. You don't have to get off your sofa. You can turn it over, you know, turn the TV over with this controller in your hand. You know, you don't have to answer your front door, because you can do it wherever you are on a piece of technology. And
Mm,
so we're being attracted to, oh yeah, you make my life easier. You make my life easier. And then someone says, drink this and it'll make you slimmer, or, you know, eat this. And people go, oh yeah, that's great, because I don't
yeah.
have to think about that. And then
Yeah.
suddenly, here we are all plodding along doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
frightening.
Yeah, it is, and no discernment in self. Like this for me is always the biggest thing, which I think is very much aligned to the work you do. Is we have to know ourselves. We have innate wisdom within us, innate genius,
Mm.
innate guidance within us, and our most prosperous lives, individually and collectively, in my view, come when we know ourselves and express our true nature into the world. But if we're being coerced and manipulated and conditioned into following certain paths because that's what everyone is doing, then you lose yourself. And in my view, that's what is the cause of most suffering on this planet. We've got some great comments coming in, so I'm going to have a look at these. So Jim says it might be disturbing, but the data genie is out of the bottle and it can't be put back. I think you're right, Jim. It's out of the bottle. And I guess then where it comes down to is, I don't know, actually. I don't know where it comes down to. I thought I was going to come out with something really profound. I was like, profundity is coming. No, nothing. I got nothing. I got
Yeah.
nothing.
Well, I think I agree with Jim, and it does concern me. But I hope that some kind of conscious awareness around it now can go. But now I'm going to limit it,
Yeah.
and now I'm going to make different choices.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it comes down to us making choices, which we're going to discuss a little bit later as well.
Mm.
Let's just see what Jill's saying here. So, Jill, I left most social media
Mm.
back in March last year because I found it was starting to make me disingenuous. Interesting. And what I still use outside of LinkedIn is private and kept to people I have actual relationships with, both who follow me and who I follow. I think that's really interesting. I think social media is various platforms in particular are going downhill. I
Mm.
think LinkedIn is pretty good right now. I like it because it hasn't quite turned into Facebook and Instagram, and I hope it doesn't go that way. Um, Facebook and Instagram now, every time I go on there, it's just adverts. Like you say, they're just trying to sell me stuff. Every other
Mm.
scroll is selling me something, which just propagates this what's the word? Not commercialization. Consumerism, and I need
Mm.
more stuff. I need more stuff. I want this. I want that. But also, the other thing I was going to say, which I've lost. What was Georgia saying? Let me read a comment again. Oh yeah, no, it's about so certain platforms. I think people are leaving. I think Facebook and Instagram, Facebook in particular now, I think is struggling.
Mm.
Like a lot of people left Facebook because it's just not as good as it used to be. But here's the interesting thing, it's people. I think people are reflecting and saying, what do I actually need? What actually helps me in my life, which is really good, like you said, making conscious choices and discerning in your daily life. But this just makes me think of a really funny story, which again, I just think, what are we doing? This was at Davos, and I don't know if I watched the whole conversation or just saw snippets of it, but the snippets were pretty clear in themselves. But essentially this was someone from Facebook. I think she was I want to call her something Sandberg, maybe Cheryl.
Well,
And I think is it
mm.
Cheryl?
Mm.
And I think she's a COO, so Chief Operating Officer, maybe. Um, and she literally was basically saying that Africa needs Facebook. And it was like, Africa, where there's poverty, people can't eat, they don't have clean water, they don't have education, they don't have shelter. And she's like, what they need to help them is Facebook. And she was using a story about how in India there's a little lady in a village, and because she has Facebook, she can now sell something to her little friend down the road. She can sell a hair clip that she made, and that's just so changing her life. And I'm like, I'm not being funny, but I think what Africa needs is food. Some basic education and maybe less corruption and maybe something like that. But she said, no, they need Facebook. And I'm like, I don't think you have to be a genius to have the wisdom to know what a human being needs and what society needs to really flourish, right? Good food, water, all these basics really are what allow us to then flourish as human beings. And to me, to be honest, the way I read that is no. Africa doesn't need Facebook. Facebook needs Africa, because Africa doesn't use much Facebook, and Facebook is running low on users because the Western world has taken it, gotten bored of it, coming off. So Facebook needs us. And so, I think that's what that really meant is, I don't know, if we need Africa. So we need to get all the Africans who can't eat, but we want them on Facebook because that's important. Is it? I think that's insane. That's my little rant over.
I not on the same track at all, but kind of around the whole kind of pressure of social media is coming out of the corporate world where I had a job, a salaried job, and working for myself. everything you get told is you've got to have a presence on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and and you've got to post so many times a day, and you've got to like this many posts, you've got to comment, and suddenly you become this machine of. And I think the lady in the previous post was saying you become disingenuous because, like, I don't want to like things for the sake of liking things, and actually I'd rather comment, because if I like something I want to say what I liked about it. And then before I know it, I'd half a day on social media and planned nothing, because I feel that I have to do this for people to be able to see what I want to tell them or what I want to share with them. It's and you know, and I think that's the thing for me. I have to believe that there's another way, because this isn't me, but I'm conforming because I'm concerned about not being able to advertise my services or earn money, you know, and because there's a really loud voice going, if you don't do this, you're done for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally vibe with that. You say, oh, I have to post something. I have to post something. It's like, well, actually, no, I don't really. But then you worry that then is that going to affect your success? And, you know, it's interesting you say, I have to believe there's another way. I think there is another way. But we're not going to get into that today because it's all about magic and consciousness, which you are starting to learn about. But that is really that's another level. But we will get to that or maybe on another live. But let's see some more comments that were coming through. Jill was talking about to be combative. There's more interaction on websites where people are baiting and battling each other. And this is the problem, right? Unfortunately, it can bring out the lesser qualities of our nature. Look, we all have all sides within us, you know. But why does social media bring out those sides? Not necessarily always in all communities, but again, these are the choices we can make. You know, when I interact on social media, what side of myself am I bringing to it? David says, good job, guys. Love the chat. He'll be back on a catch up. Thanks for watching, David. And yep, hope you enjoy the rest when you come back. LinkedIn user with no name. Let's put this one up here. I'm cautious about the use of data, but for example, healthcare data properly anonymized can be extremely valuable in helping improve services. It is therefore possible to be too cautious with our data. So the key is strong governance and public trust. I agree. Do you have trust is the question. I don't. I'm just going to come out and say it. You know, I think there are so many examples where our data is used to manipulate elections, public perception. We have to understand what data and information is. It's not just data and information. When it's used effectively, it controls the perception of every human being. When you control the perception of a human being, you control their beliefs. When you control their beliefs, you control their emotions. When you control their emotions, you control their behavior. And then you control society and what it looks like. So this is why, for me, it's not just about, oh, it's just information, it's just data. Who's using it and how? Because is everybody of a high standing moralistically, if that's even a word? You know, or are they just using it to make money, to sell us stuff? And, you know, we talk about the NHS data, and I think that's only just come out. I've not done a lot of research into it, but my understanding is that it's, is it definitely anonymized? Don't know. And who's it going to? That's my question. Who's it going to and why? Because this is how it always starts. They're just doing this to help us. And then later on, what are you doing? Like Facebook, we just need your email so you can have an account. Oh, but actually now I'm listening to everything you're saying. I'm looking through your camera and all this sort of stuff. I'm tracking all your phone calls. Why? That's my question. Why? That's my only question. I just want to know why. And I don't necessarily know all the answers to that, but I think it's something we should be asking.
I think because we just don't know, there's so much that we don't know. And so we're taking things on face value. You know, like you, I think the same, like, you know, like when you get the option of a donor card. And for me, yes, you know, in the event of my death, if I could help someone live, then absolutely, I'm all in on that. And so equally, if my medical data could help in research in some way, then yes, I would like to help, but I'm nervous about it because I don't, like you say, I don't trust it.
Yeah.
And it might just be a kind of a naivety or an ignorance, but I haven't got any evidence that says you can trust this.
Yeah, and I think that's what yeah, that's it. And that, you know, that line there from this LinkedIn user, public trust. So governance, how hard are we finding it to regulate these big tech companies? There was a thing I was talking to you about, Helen, the other day, that the British government, I know that, they try every now and then to have a hearing with these people, but they tried to get Mark Zuckerberg in for something, and he was like, no, okay then, bye. He just said no. Like, some people suggest that big tech companies are more powerful than governments. And when they own all your data, you got to question that, because data is the new oil, and it's incredibly powerful. And when you can control the information as well, you control people's perceptions. And like you say, you can send them down through conditioning into paths that may not be their true selves, may not be that beneficial, maybe for some other agendas. You never know this. And I think these are just the questions I find interesting to ponder. And like you say, it's, what's the evidence showing us? I always go by, well, what have we done so far? And there are some cases where we use things for wonderfully good things, but there are also cases where we don't. So I don't think you can go either way and say, oh, it's all going to be good and it'll be great, or it's all going to be bad. No, we're human beings, and we have both sides within us, and we are all massively flawed, from me to Mark Zuckerberg. And so someone's going to make decisions at some point for their own interest, or for power interests, or financial interests, or just because they didn't think properly, and that may be something that's detrimental. So I think that's why we just have to have this conversation. And like you were saying earlier, it's about our choices. We need to have choices about what we contribute to, because I'm part of society, and I want to be able to choose what kind of society I contribute to and live in. But sometimes you feel like you don't have a choice, because if I don't have a laptop, I can't function in this world now. So let's go on to, Helen, to the next topic. Future technology. Oh, sci-fi world meets reality. I think that's where we are right now. So for us, this encompasses things like artificial intelligence, whether that's machine learning and using machines to learn to do things like diagnostics in healthcare and so on, or is it using things like trying to make a robot that is like a human, or is it going as far as things like other elements of the futuristic technology? We've got something called Neuralink, which we will talk about, because someone did comment that before in the questions. And so we'll talk about what Neuralink is and our opinion on that. And then taking it really far into things like, we want to use our science and technology to colonize Mars and take humans to Mars. And then there's also actually something very interesting about virtual reality, which is becoming quite popular, I think, as well, and what that does to us. So where would you like to start? Should we start with, I say, where would you like, and then I choose. Where would you like to start, Helen? Sorry.
I don't
Where
mind.
would you like?
Where would you like me to start? I guess for me, if we think about things like colonizing Mars, what makes me I don't know what the word is. I don't even know if it's anxious or cautious or disturbed about things like that, is we can fix this planet. There's so much that, like you mentioned about clean drinking water for parts of our world that don't have it. There's so much, the planet that we're just destroying. Again, looking outside, there are beautiful trees and stuff that are out there, but we just build more houses, and the plastics, and actually that was something I was thinking about earlier when we were talking about technology in home fashion. We make fabrics, but we've got natural fabrics. It's all of that kind of stuff all the time. But what's wrong with what we've got? And what's wrong with making this better?
Yeah. And for me, it's, this is where I go into the realms of like people who have God complexes, is what I call it. The God complexes. I'm going to create life. I'm going to make life. And personally, I find that I don't know because I don't know. That's really it. I just don't know. But there are a number of ways you can look at that. And number one is that like an amazing, ingenious thing that someone is able to do that wants to create life and consciousness and so on? Or is it a very dangerous, strange, egoic type activity? To me, I am humbled and dumbfounded by nature and whatever created life. And I actually think it's arrogant for a human being to think that they can create life and start meddling with life and messing with life too much. I think you're going down, because we don't know what's going to happen. That's the thing.
Mm.
We're like, oh, let's do this. It's so exciting. Let's put a chip in your brain, but you don't know what's going to happen. That's a neural link. We'll talk about that in a moment. But just like you say, firstly, talking about looking after this planet, which is not difficult. And again, it comes down to choices. I can choose, not me personally, but there are people who have money, power, resources to choose. Do I plant a tree on this earth, or do I try and figure out how to plant one on Mars? Now, my wisdom, my innate wisdom and common sense says to me, hey, let's plant some trees here. Hey, let's make some food for people here. Hey, so people can be happier and weller and have a wonderful time and look after themselves and care for each other. But someone else says, no, 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 I want to plant some trees on Mars. And to me, it's like, well, again, is there a right or wrong answer? But with this whole Mars thing, it feels like a real, like you've just resigned yourself to the fact that we're going to destroy this planet. We're going to
Mm.
destroy ourselves. And so the only option is to go elsewhere. And I think that's absolutely insane. And nature is naturally resilient. I don't think it's even that we need to save this planet. We just need to stop messing it up. And naturally, nature will come back. It always does. You always see the plants growing through concrete.
Yeah.
And you even see humans, how we heal ourselves, how we get better. Like we are the most incredible technology. The human is the best technology. The mind is the best technology. Consciousness, which we don't even understand yet. So much potential there when you understand how you can heal your body with your mind. And there's research out there. People do this. They
Mm.
can heal their body with their mind. And so we haven't even touched that. But we're like, no, let's go to Mars. Let's make a brain chip. How about this? This is so majestic and interesting to me, this human experience. And I think we can just, oh, there's so much to explore there. And we don't need to hurt or hate or damage anyone else in order to do it, because it's a very introspective, beautiful experience. I'm just going to see one comment we've got here, and then we'll take you, or Helen will take your views on what I've just said there. Yes, people are the commodity. You know, they say, Jill, if you don't pay for the product, you are the product. So I don't pay for Facebook because I'm the product. You know that, and that's how it works. And the commoditization of humans. I mean, look what we do for oil. Look what we do for money. Look what we do. So what would we do for humans and data and selling? You know, again, are we wise enough? Are we conscious enough to do this stuff in a way that is for the highest good of all? I'd love to say yes, but I just don't think that we're that advanced spiritually, consciously to make the wiser decisions. And that's what we have to be aware of, the unintended consequences of the things that we do, as you were saying, Helen, the
Mm.
repercussions that we're so excited about this new thing we've created and what we can do with it and how it will benefit us, that we don't think 2 steps down the line what could happen. So yeah, Helen, come in on this. What were your thoughts?
Well, I think that's the that I was feeling exactly what you were saying about, does someone know something we don't? Like, we're all doomed. This planet is done in. It's got X amount of years left, and that's why someone's investigating Mars and other planets, because they think, well, we know this one's got no life left, so we'll go and restart over there. Or maybe it's just too difficult. Maybe it's
Mm,
just too difficult and not sexy enough to kind of go, oh yeah, I was the person who created this. Maybe people just don't want that.
yeah,
Because because people want sci-fi. We've all bought into, that kind of technology.
yeah,
Um, that maybe that's the view. That's the view that people want, the ideal of, oh, one day we can buy a house on Mars. Won't that be exciting?
yeah,
Rather than, I guess, the simplistic view that we're talking about is where you grow your own veg,
yeah.
and you learn to look after yourself and your earth and your neighbors and your friends and your family, and you have more community. Maybe that's just not exciting enough. So
Yeah, you're right. And maybe it's not for everyone, like for me, the more I do my own personal development, growth, spiritual development, and all of that inner work, the less I need out there, the less out there tantalizes
yeah,
me, the less I need to go out there and find more things, because I realize it's all in here. The
mm,
bliss, the joy, the creativity, the wonder, the awe, the connection with people, the love, the joy, the feelings that you can't put a name on. of just how incredible it is to be a human and to be on this planet and to look at the stars and be like, wow, the wonder of this. And I love exploring it as well. Like, I love space. I love the fact that we can go out there and see stuff and look at stuff and find stuff, and it's majestic and it's magical. But that is all an inner experience, and it means that these things out there don't tantalize me as much. Like, I have no interest in a brain chip. I'm
Mm.
like, I'm just exploring my own consciousness, and that alone blows my mind. When you have transcendental experiences in your own consciousness, in your meditations, when you realize that you're creating your own reality and you start to see the magic and the synchronicities around you, when you use your intuition and get creative insight and amazing ideas and genius things that's all within you. When you start doing that, I don't need a brain chip. This is the best technology and we don't even understand it. And so, yeah, I think for me, I find these things a little bit redundant. Like, I don't know, but not redundant totally, but we'll go on to that in a moment. I just want to share one more comment. So Ed is the anonymous LinkedIn user. Edward, darling, why do you not have your name on there? It says, for me, there should always be an opt-out for new technology. It doesn't say much for the benefits of new tech if we're forced to use it. Making it optional also helps build trust. I agree, Ed. And also what I think is making it easy to opt out. Do you know what? I just bought a new device and I was trying to set my Google settings. I could probably spend 3 hours trying to figure out how to turn off Google tracking this, that, the other, this cookie, that, this marketing thing, this, that. I can't figure it out. They make it so complex, so long things you have to read through, all the buttons. And if you press that one, but you have to also press this one. They don't make it easy for you to opt out of anything, right?
Well, and also, don't you think with like new technology, like say for example, you've got an older version phone which works perfectly, but
Yeah.
you can't have certain functions because the software can't handle it. So you're being asked to get rid of it and buy something new, even though fundamentally there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
And then that
and
comes back to, sorry.
sorry.
No.
So
By
much
the way,
you're being
everybody, I was saying this is an insight into our world, because this is what happens. We're on them. We're on the phone going, I can't say everything all at once, and we can't stop talking.
yeah. We'll just have a quick chat 2 hours later. You're being forced to use technology. Like, if you want to find out about something, you've got to look on someone's Facebook page. You can't, and then you've got to have a Facebook account if you want to interact. It's nothing, your choices don't kind of come into it.
Your choices are limited. You think you have choice, but you don't really. Your choice now
Yeah.
is either you live in this world or you don't. And if you don't, how are you going to feed yourself? How are you going to? And this just lends me on to, I know we're going a bit all over the place, but talking about cyber attacks, because it links to what we were saying earlier about the certain major platforms that have lost their internet recently. And the more we are relying on big tech, Amazon, big banking, big agriculture, big food, everything being done by these big technological conglomerates. I'm wondering if I even know what that word means as I use it, but I like it, so I'll use it. And it's like, but the World Economic Forum has actually said that their words were something along the lines of COVID being a walk in the park compared to a cyber attack, and they see that as a thing that's coming. They said that's our next challenge, a cyber attack. So if that happens, because we're so reliant on technology and this global system of technology that's basically orchestrating everything that we need to survive and then some, not even just survive, like literally live in every way. If that goes down, then where are we? And I think that's something also to ponder. Jimmy says some already have a chip on their shoulder. Very good. I like it. Very nice, Jimmy. Let's look at Jill's comment here. Is that the next phase of evolution? Is the need for humanity to conquer, dominate, and colonize a throwback to the animal side of our nature? Very interesting. And the search inwards is where evolution is needed. Cognitive awareness is what separates us from our primates, but it doesn't give us ultimate freedom. Do you know what? Absolutely. My belief is that the evolution of human consciousness is the next stage of evolution. It's the evolution of our own consciousness, rather than evolution out there in technology and things and whatever. Like, I think we've done the physical evolution, and it's now about elevating our minds and consciously evolving. I think that that's where humanity is headed or meant to be headed. That all sounds a bit weird and prophetic, but I don't know. And I think that's actually what we're searching for when we're like, I want to create new life, I want to, all this stuff we want to do. I feel like it's the person who thinks that is maybe searching for the higher experience, the higher consciousness, but they don't realize that it's in you. Yeah, you do it through your own conscious. I mean, this all sounds so woo-woo and fluffy, and that's a whole nother topic. But great point, Jill. And absolutely, this is my kind of conversation.
Well, I think it's that question, isn't it? Are we not good enough?
Yeah.
Like, why does there always have to be more?
Yeah.
Like,
And I
maybe.
think. Sorry.
It's okay.
Go.
I was just going to say, maybe learning when enough is enough. And that's not to say, and I think that it's really important that we're not saying you should have no technology, you should have no advancement, because of course we need that, but it's the balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think if you go back to the starting point about the social media and the comparison, that's where these things come from, because we're not quite good enough as we are. We're not clever enough. We're not slim enough. We're not pretty enough. We're not, whatever enough.
Yeah. And this is it. So in my view, technology is advancing faster than our consciousness is advancing.
Yes.
So we are like, no disrespect, I include this in myself in this category, but we're like chimps with an AK-47 in our hand, potentially. We have technology. What do we use it for? To make bombs and atomic bombs, and that's not very advanced or wise in my view. So in my view, I don't think we're that advanced consciously. And that's what I think the journey is. And technology is super advanced, and we're primitive in our minds and our consciousness. We're still primitive, but we're trying to use advanced technology. And that is why I think, and why I have the perspectives I have, is that the risk is always there that we will use it in not so good ways, or we will get ourselves into trouble because we didn't think ahead and use our own wisdom. And then we get the negative effects later on, which goes on to our friend Elon Musk and his neural link. So essentially, my understanding of that is a brain chip that goes in your brain, that they've tested it on a monkey of some sort, and they've managed to make the monkey play ping pong on a screen through this brain. So basically it's in the brain, then you can tell it what to do, and it tells your brain and your body to do stuff. And the current theory is it will be really helpful for someone who has like Alzheimer's or something, or paraplegic. I saw, is that when you're basically paralyzed or various limbs are not working, and that it can help you with that. And it's like, well, that sounds all very lovely, doesn't it? But again, Facebook said, I just want your email. And then they said, I want all your records. I want all of your phone. I want to know everything you're doing and who you're speaking to. So where does this lead? Because it's like, we're just going to instruct your brain to help your limbs move. Oh, but what else are you going to put in there? What else can you take out? We don't know. But this is the discernment and the ability to stop and just think a little, that I think we could really do with. Because we're, again, just looking at humanity in the past, I go by that. When I see how we behaved and what we end up creating, that's the way I look at what we're doing now and where that may lead us based on the evidence of the past. And that's why I raise these questions, because actually, where is that going to go? And then they talk about uploading your consciousness to the cloud and all this. And I'm like, I don't even know why you want to do that. I can't even figure out my own consciousness when it's in my own head, let alone putting it in the cloud and trying to do something with it. But what are your views on this, Helen?
Oh, it terrifies me of how much power people would be prepared to give away. The idea that someone could say, okay, so what is it you'd like to do better? Oh, you'd like to speak to German. Let me just program that for you. The fact that they can program that for you means they can program anything. And suddenly someone has complete control over that part of your brain.
Yeah.
Why would you give that away? And I do have an overactive imagination for sure. But, I just have this vision of like people lining up like stormtroopers, like because you've been called. Like I had to switch off The Handmaid's Tale because it frightened the hell out of me. Like the idea that this kind of craziness could kind of take over. And that's what comes to mind when I think about that. I cannot balance where the good turns into something else. And, you know, like we talk unintended consequences. And in the film, The Social Dilemma, when all of these people who have been part of Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and you know, so many of them are talking about, we didn't expect it to do this. You know, like they went all in with, you know, the amazing idea of being able to connect and but the fact that it kind of went to a point of controlling you via notifications and stuff, the point is, once you develop this technology, who's to say whose hands it falls into and what they then decide to do with it?
Exactly. And that's where, again, you know, it depends on how much you trust, you know, and how you think, you know, how evolved people are, and will they make the right decisions. And again, the reality is every human is flawed, and they say the line between good and evil runs between every human being. So you know, and so when we have a sort of a drive inside us that wants us maybe to do something bad or be nasty to someone or whatever, are we controlling that? But then, you know, Elon Musk or whoever else takes this Neuralink and does whatever, when they have a drive that goes, oh, wouldn't it be exciting to see if we can put some other thoughts into this person's brain or whatever? Are they discerning that effectively and saying, is that really in the highest good? Is that wise? Or are they just going with it? You know, so again, it comes back to self-mastery, our own consciousness. And again, I personally think we are chimps with AK-47s in our hands when it comes to a lot of this tech. And it's a shame because it could be amazing. You know, I literally have the vision of Wakanda in my mind. I'm like, it could be amazing. We can use it in so many wonderful ways, but it's just, we're so fast as well. Like you say, oh, go, create the next thing. Let's go to Mars. Let's create a brain chip, put it in a monkey. Let's put it in a human. And it's like, calm down, people. Let's just think for a minute. And the other thing I find interesting about this whole brain chip to cure Alzheimer's or whatever, well, we do know that a lot of diseases and things can be cured by yourself. The placebo effect is very real. And there are many situations which people maybe don't know because it's not really mainstream, but when you roll in the kind of circles that we do, and I know specifically for what I'm involved in and what I learn and research, people have healed really big chronic illnesses through their mind, through their focus, through their consciousness, because that is basically your computer, your technology that dictates everything, that programs everything. And I'm not saying that people should sit there and try and meditate their way out of a difficult illness. Please go to the doctor. I'm not a clinician, but I'm just saying that we know that this does happen. It's a thing. It's not fabricated. When you understand quantum reality and everything like that, you can really, not that anyone can really understand it because it's, you know, who really knows, but when you start to learn about the fact that everything is energy, your consciousness is energy, your thoughts are energy, frequencies, vibrations, you can really see how this is amazing, like what we can do. I don't need a chip. I'm still trying to work out how much I can do myself because there's so much, and that excites me. You know, I don't need someone else to put something in me to help me do that. But
well, and how about stop selling processed food? You know, not encouraging people to exercise. What about prevention?
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
like instead of like thinking about how do we cure this, how do we prevent it?
Exactly. Why do people have Alzheimer's in the first place? Because there is research out there that talks about these things, and for some reason it just doesn't
Depression.
get. Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of it's all psychological stuff, and that we can fix now. We can fix
Yes.
now as well, and we don't need brain chips to do that. So again, that's where I think science without wisdom. You know, we don't have wisdom. We have intellect. We have a lot of intellect, a lot of smarts, but we're not wise. And that's why I think we don't necessarily choose the best solutions, and we don't necessarily think more than one step ahead. And like you say, later down the line, we created some kind of repercussion that actually is very difficult to get out of. And look, is there a solution to that? I don't know. I don't run the world. I can't control everybody. And I don't think I'd even know what to tell people to do because I don't know. I really don't. I just, you know, but I find it fascinating. And I think this is a good time to go on to our final bits because we are at 2, but I do want to do the questions for all of our lovely viewers because I think these are awesome questions that Helen came up with. Helen, we're going to answer these questions as well. So let me bring the first one up on the screen. Everyone have a ponder and let us know what you think. So if you could have a chip fitted in your brain that made you lose weight, would you do it? Helen, would you do it?
No. I think part of the magic is in working it all out for yourself, because we are all different. And you know, what might be a food hero for me could not be for somebody else. And I think learning is what makes us interesting, and our choices make us interesting. So, and I think the chip thing, for no reason at all, would I have a chip fitted.
Yeah, I like that. I would say the only chips I like are made of potato. And I don't, I have no desire to go down that road. And look, if it's a choice for people, that's fine, you
Mm,
know. And people can choose, because some people may get really excited about this potential opportunity to have this kind of thing. Personally, I just would I find this being, and I'm not even the best when it comes to physical health and things like that. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I'm all over it, but when it comes to the physical, I still have work to do there to really connect with the sacredness of this being. But I find this being so sacred. I find it so magical that the atoms in my star, in my cells, came from stars billions of years ago, and they're in me right now. I find it absolutely unreal that this thing works so beautifully. I can't even
mm,
understand it. And I would never put a chip in it. I just think it's like, no, thanks. So let's see what other people are saying. Jimmy says no.
I thought,
And Jill says no. Okay. I'd love to see the thoughts of someone who would do it, actually.
mm,
That would be really interesting. So if you watch this back later, and you would say yes, please tell us, because I'd love to talk with you. Because I think also, Helen and I, we're quite similar, I think, with some of our thinking here. And so I would actually really love to speak to someone who sees this
mm.
in a totally different way. And actually, yeah, I'd love to explore that and see what is it that tantalizes you about that. So here's our next question, and we got one more after this. If you could holiday anywhere in the world you wanted by wearing a virtual reality headset, because that's the thing now, by the way, that's the next thing, is you just sit down, put it on your face, and you go where you want. Would you trade that for the real holiday that you can afford, Helen?
And I guess this is the thing, isn't it? Because if you could travel to anywhere in the world, you know, these amazing destinations that you probably may never afford to go, but you could go with a headset,
Mm,
or you could, you know, maybe travel in the UK, or, you know, you could stick to your budget. You know, what are the choices there? And for me, no, the holiday I could afford every day of the week, because I
yeah.
think that you cannot. I mean, I'm sure you can, because the whole thing about imagery is it stimulates your senses, and you know, all of that kind of stuff. I do agree with that. I do understand that,
Mm,
but there's something about, as much as I am really bad at packing because I cannot make decisions and I want to take everything, because I have this whole like, oh, my French Riviera day, I'll need that hat and those shoes.
yeah.
Um, but that's part of the experience, isn't it? And like every time I come back and I unpack and I go, next time I'm doing a capsule wardrobe. But you know, it's like it never happens. But it's part of the experience, and it's the culture and the food, and you know, like the people you meet.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
has to be a real experience for me every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely resonate with that. I also hate packing. I hate the traveling bit, like the packing, the airport, the plane, and all that. But the bit in between is perfect. But this is it, because virtual reality is definitely a big thing. Again, the big tech people are really into this, and that's what they're creating more of. And I also find that fascinating, again, in terms of how it impacts your consciousness and your brain. Because essentially, again, we are programmed by, particularly if you're not particularly aware, but even if you are aware, I don't think you can necessarily control this, but you are programmed by your environment as well. And so if you've got this thing on you, it's putting information in. And again, it's who uses it for what, right? And what sort of, and I can just imagine if I turn into a zombie staring at my phone for half an hour, what, because when I look up and I'm like, oh, I'm here again, what is it going to be like when you're fully immersed in a virtual reality that is even making all your body have the sensations and everything, because it feels so real? And then you come out of that, I feel like, and especially if you imagine kids doing this, because you know this is going to be the future of gaming, right? I'm sure. And
Yeah.
kids are going to be at home with their virtual reality headsets, and you just think it's not, it's not just a game. You're really affecting the development of the brain, particularly if they're young, but not even if they're young, because your brain is always changing, right, in response to the environment. So if your environment is now a virtual reality thing stuck on your face, what is that doing to your brain, to your psyche, your beliefs, your consciousness, your energy, your emotions, everything? And I don't know if anyone looks at that. They're just excited to have a virtual reality headset. Isn't it fun? But I'm like, yeah, but what is it going to do when people start using them more? And again, it's not the tool, it's who's using it and for what, because there are very good things I've seen virtual reality used for.
Mm.
So for example, I've seen it be used to help people with phobias. So there was a guy who was scared of heights, and instead of getting him in immersion therapy in the real world where he'd have to go and stand over a real height, they put a VR headset on and he walked, and it was like he was on a bridge and on the edge of a cliff or something, and it actually worked. So he got
Mm.
to process and overcome his phobia to quite a large degree with the VR headset, which is amazing. Again, we can use these things in really positive
Mm.
ways, or we can use them to turn ourselves into little zombies and just blobs that sit on our chairs and do everything through virtual reality, rather than engaging in the world and experiencing the physical experience and really immersing ourselves in what this world is all about. So yeah, so let's see, does anyone else, yes, we've got some comments on this question. No, Jim enjoys the physical journey. Jill says no. Jill says a lack of genuine experience. Let's put this on here. The lack of genuine experience and interaction cannot be replaced. Plus, the VR will be programmed and therefore not organic
Yeah.
and unpredictable. Absolutely. And it's
Mm.
again, it's this whole sort of robotic thing, which people are loving, like people, this whole sort of merging man and machine, that's where it's going. That's what people are doing. They're loving exploring that and really creating what we call transhumanism. And it's sort of like, I don't know, for me it just doesn't tantalize me, to be honest. But for some people that's very interesting. And yeah, let's go to our last question for our wonderful viewers. Okay, this one's about food, because we're a lot of, like,
Mm.
manufacturing food now rather than letting the earth provide its wonderful gifts to us. If you could eat can't say that word, laboratory grown meat instead of killing animals and or because it's kinder to the environment, would you, Helen?
Well, I'm a vegetarian,
Okay.
and so this was interesting because the debate came up around could vegetarians eat this laboratory grown meat, and I think it stems from a cell of an animal. So even if I was going to, it would be out for me. But what concerns me about this is, again, it's another processed type food. You're putting something genetically modified into your body, which our bodies aren't designed to break down and digest. And so for me, that just seems nonsensical.
Yeah.
And I think, it concerns me. I think, like, in terms of food and nurturing ourselves and looking after ourselves, eating seasonally, eating natural products, all of that kind of stuff. So this for me concerns me. And also the motivation behind it. Like, there's a concern that, we've got too many cows, and because of the meat that people want to eat, well, educate people, like, you don't have to kind of factory farm laboratize some meat. So it's a definite no for me.
Okay. So for me, I do eat meat, not a lot, but I do. But I would like to move towards more plant-based. I definitely would like to. Just don't have the will at the moment, but I can see my life going in that direction, hopefully. Would I eat laboratory grown meat? Um, mm, I'm really, I mean, I like the other things, like corn.
Mm.
So I don't mind that, like plant alternatives that might sort of look and taste a bit like meat, but don't really taste like meat. But do you know what I mean? I don't mind that, but it's plant-based alternatives. But laboratory grown meat, again, I feel like something's going to go wrong there, people. Like, you are not God. You stop trying to be God. You're not, and when I say God, I just mean,
Yeah.
consciousness, universe, divine intelligence, whatever. But I'm really finding it hard to say no, but I definitely don't want to say yes. But equally, it's almost like I can't even understand this concept of lab grown meat. But then equally, everything we eat now is genetically modified. Everything we eat now is in labs, in like grown in like orchestrated environments with chemicals. Like we have a lot of toxicity in what we're taking in, which is why I think we have so many illnesses, mental and physical, because we live very toxic environments. Unfortunately, we're not clean, healthy, in the way that we should be, and we are taken away from our true nature because everything is becoming, manufactured and toxic and chemicalized. But that actually leads me to answer this question, which is no, I would not, because who knows what else has got in it. No, thank you. I'd rather not eat meat. But I do definitely think there's something to be said for the kindness of for animals and the environment. But like you say, it's like this is going to be pushed as the solution. Is it really though? I don't think so.
Well, and
There's
I
many
think,
solutions.
speaking as someone who's been vegetarian for over 40 years, maybe, um, we get offered rubbish vegetarian alternatives. Like
Yeah.
vegetarian food, when cooked well, is amazing.
Yeah.
So my husband eats meat, and which I will cook for him occasionally. But how often he really enjoys a good vegetarian meal? Like,
Mm.
doesn't miss the fact that he's not having meat because the food tastes really, really good. And I think that's the trouble is you get told, oh, vegetarian, vegan, it's really bland, it's really
No.
dull. And it's
Yeah.
not. It's not. It
No.
just depends how you prepare it. But then again, I think that's another thing that comes back to time.
Yeah.
So, if you want to do it well, it's going to take a
Yeah.
bit of time.
Yeah, you just made me think of something. Jamie Oliver, quite a while back, was trying to educate schools in America and get their diets better and gets their food at schools for the kids better. And he did a show where he literally asked these children, I kid you not, he held up a potato or some vegetable and said, "What is it?" And they didn't know. People were like, "Oh, I think it's a tomato." These kids didn't know what the stuff was. I kid you not. I remember watching this years ago. I was like, this is bad. And so imagine again now when you don't know where your food comes from, you don't know what your food is, it's
Mm.
come from a lab somewhere. And people do say, and I'm not a scientist in this area, so but I do hear that people say that actually the things that we create, manufacture, do not have the nutritional value of things that are created naturally and don't have all the chemicals and are not,
Mm.
affected by GMs or whatever. They don't actually have the nutritional value. And personally, I think the fruit that and things like that we get in England taste horrible. And maybe I'm shopping in the wrong places, but particularly mass produced stuff, it doesn't taste good. And then I go to go on holiday in those days when we used to do that kind of thing, and you get like a freshly grown tomato from some nice little place where they're still living very naturally, and it just tastes amazing. And that's nature. Nature knows what it's doing. Nature is very smart beyond our comprehension. And so again, this idea of like, well, no, we can make our food in a lab. I think, are you bored? Maybe people are bored. It's like,
Yeah.
how about you learn how to grow some food and make food naturally? And I don't know. How do we grow more natural food for the people who are starving? I don't know. So I've gone a bit on a tangent there, but
But it
let's get
comes back to your original point, right? About food. Our bodies can digest natural food.
yeah.
It works extra hard to digest processed food. Therefore, are we nature?
Interesting, right? Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of the illnesses and toxicity comes from in our bodies, right? It's because we're putting so
Right.
much stuff in us that it can't handle. So let's have a little look at some of the comments. This was on the VR. Did we miss this one? So the lack of genuine experience and oh no, sorry, we did the
No,
VR
that,
one
yeah.
with Jill. So we're on to the meat one. Jim says, I like the idea of lad meat, a bit like the Star Trek replicator. Helen's a Star Trek fan.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I get that. I get the link.
What's the Star Trek replicator?
You can make stuff.
Just
Like when they
replicate
have their little
anything.
machine.
Oh, I remember the teleporty thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so Jimmy's a lab meat fan. Jimmy, if you ever get some and eat some, let us know, and actually be interested to know your thinking there. Jill says probably. Jim says corn is lab grown. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I don't eat that
Ah,
anymore.
is it not okay? I've not really researched. Well, I guess that's the thing, right? When you don't
Well,
know,
it
is it?
goes back to that thing that we're told it's healthy.
Ah, but it's
And
not.
is it?
Is
But
it? Is it? I guess.
it's still something that your body has to work out how to break down.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I've learned something new today as well. Thank you. Um, Jill says, I completely understand those who are vegetarians and vegans and the value of being, so I'm not either. I'd try the lab meat, and if I enjoyed it, I would probably eat it again. Yeah, do you know? I think actually a lot of people would, and I think that's
Mm,
interesting because even I was a bit like, because it's sort of,
mm,
it didn't seem too alien or too like, no. But then there's a bit, I don't know the answers, but these things, and this is why we want this conversation, right? Is to see what other people think, because really, as well, comes back round to the way society goes and the way technology goes is what we buy into as well. The
yeah.
only reason Facebook exists is because I have an account. The only reason that Zoom is taking over is because we all started using it. The
Mm,
only reason people will get chips in their head is because people are getting chips in their head. So if lab grown meat becomes a thing, and I love the idea of helping the environment and animals, but I just don't know if I understand enough to see that how that's going to work. But I love the intention of it. And if the intention in things remains pure and effective and functional, I think we can do wonderful things. But the concern, as we've discussed, is that humans are flawed, and that's okay. We're not beating anyone up for that, but it's good to be aware of that and say, do you know what? Maybe we are making decisions that are not necessarily very helpful. And maybe we should take a little bit of a longer term view, because we're very much like, it's all about now, right? What I want now, what do I want now, what's good for me now, me
mm,
now. We don't think, well, where is this taking us 10, 20, 30, 40 years? And maybe we can't even see that because this is all so new. But you can hypothesize, right? And for us, and for me personally, I look at everything through the lens of human behavior and psychology and consciousness and development. So from that perspective, I can hypothesize what happens when you put virtual reality on your face, because I can understand what it might do to your consciousness and your brain. So I can look at that. So it's not rocket, I'm not genius rocket scientist whatever coming up with this stuff. Many people will be able to see that. And so
mm.
my question is, well, are you actually including that in your equations as you're producing technologies, using technologies, or are you not? And I guess for me, it comes into every equation, because that's just me. That's how I live. That's how I see the world. I'm always looking at things through that lens. And yeah, I guess that, that is it. I want to finish with one question. And I'm going to ask everyone in the chat this question as well, if I can just figure out how to take these comments off there. How do I take these comments off? Sorry. Me and technology. Oh, it's a question. That's why. So my last question to everybody, and to you, Jill, is: are we headed to Wakanda or the Matrix?
Do you know what I was thinking about when you were talking about the whole Mars thing? I wonder if there'll be some of us left on Earth. Like some people will go to Mars and choose their life there, and the rest of us will go, no, we're going to see what we can do with the planet we've got left. I've got a good film coming out of this.
I like it. This is really good. We
Yeah,
should
but
write this. We
you
should.
get we get the choice to kind of stay or go.
Yeah.
And so, we have the option to make Wakanda here on Earth.
Oh, yeah, I'd like
Wouldn't that be
that.
nice?
Yeah, I'd like that. I think, yeah, Matrix or Wakanda. To be honest, I mean, again, like we say, there's always two parts of us, right? My fearful side says we're going to the Matrix. My
Mm.
pessimistic side says Matrix, because I look at humans and I look at the fact that even right now in 2021 we're doing silly things. We've got genocides on the planet. We're making war weapons all the time. There's people starving, but instead of feeding them, we choose to spend money on weapons and going. What's his face from Amazon is going off on a space trip, and it's like, you're the richest man on the planet, and can you do something else? No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure he's doing other things that are very helpful, but my pessimistic side sees all of that and says we're going into the Matrix, because we're getting like more and more dumbed down and more used by technology. It's more separate from our own nature. If I was to tune in more to my own higher self and not let that side of me dictate my perspective, and really take a higher, broader view, I feel like what's obvious to me is that this is actually a really, really great learning experience that is allowing people to wake up to who they truly are. And I think we can get to a point where we will use technology so much in so many destructive ways that we will be forced in our own lives and collectively to say, all right, let's check in here. We got to change. And I think we will naturally move away from the things that are destructive. But I think it's going to take time, and then I think that's when we create our Wakanda, right? But I think that it's unfortunately with humans, often we learn through pain. We don't learn through foresight and thinking through and wisdom. We tend to learn through pain, and I feel like that maybe we have to go on this journey where we really get a bit crazy and do some crazy stuff if we're not already, and at some point people start to awaken and say, do you know what, I don't want that, because the inner wisdom cannot be removed. The inner wisdom, the innate guidance, the nature, who you are, if you can remain in touch with that, it will guide you. And I think it will guide us towards a Wakanda. And I think alternatives will come up. You know, people will use technology to create alternatives to the things that we have right now that maybe are not so good. So I think it's possible that we could really use it in a wonderful way. And I guess that's the vision I would maintain if I want to maintain my insanity. So so I'll just say that to
Yeah,
myself.
I'll
We're
go with
gonna
that
have a Wakanda.
then.
So let's see what everyone else thinks. Jimmy says, do we not already live in the form of a matrix? Jim, man, you're going to stop saying things like that. We're going to be here for a while. How would we know? I saw a meme, and it said something like, imagine at the end of your life, you've died, and someone takes a VR headset off your face and goes, how was it? And I was like, oh, that just blew my whole mind. I was like, I can't hold that. I can't, I don't know what to do with that. Can you imagine?
Oh my God. Yeah. And so what would you like to do differently now?
Oh
Well,
man,
see,
I
no,
don't.
that's the thing though, isn't it? Because God, I know we're going on, but there was a study done at a university somewhere, and forgive me for not knowing the details, where some students were painted up to be an elderly version of themselves so that they could feel their age as a pensioner. So there was a group that happened to and a group that it didn't happen to, and then they were spoken to about planning for their future, you know,
Wow.
financially going for the future. And the ones who'd physically seen themselves older contributed more into their pension than those who hadn't.
Oh,
It's the whole
interesting.
idea that you can kind of experience what it might look and feel like to be that age goes, oh yeah,
Yeah.
now I want to care about that. Whereas if it's too far off and you can't imagine it, you
Yeah.
can't engage with it.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Oh, I love that. I love that. Oh, I don't know, man. This is so, we're getting into it now. Yeah, I mean, when you think about consciousness and what we understand about it, we are projecting and creating our own realities. Everything, some people say we live in a holographic universe. And actually we are, and it's true in the sense that my reality doesn't exist outside of me. What I'm
Mm.
seeing right now, it's not there. I'm seeing it in my brain. My brain is creating an image by interpreting vibration and frequency. What I'm hearing is my brain is interpreting vibration and frequency and telling me what it thinks it is. Everything actually exists in your own mind. And I've had very visceral experiences of this where I don't know if I was speaking to you about this already, Helen, around something called sleep paralysis. I've spoken to quite a few people about this recently, where basically your body is asleep, but your mind is waking up, but not fully. And so you actually physically get up and out of bed, and then you realize you haven't got up and out of bed. And this is one of the most
Oh.
crazy experiences. I've had it a few times. I know people have had it. And it's very scary because you're like, I'm like, my body's dead, but my mind, you know, when you think a dream feels real, no,
Mm.
no, no. This feels real. I am 1,000,000% sure that I have just woken up. I can feel myself, everything, touch everything. I can feel my body moving, getting out of bed. And then suddenly I realize in my consciousness, I'm still lying there and I haven't woken up. So that's something, it's crazy, right? It's crazy. It's really crazy. And it just makes you think, what is consciousness? Where is my reality then? Because my reality in that moment is I just got out of bed, but my body hadn't moved. So again, this is what makes you think about, well, if you're putting VR headsets on you and everything, where is your reality? What is reality? I
Yeah.
don't know. And it really is in your head, because that experience of me getting up was very real, but I didn't get up. So what really happened? Did I wake up? Did I not? What's real? Is my body real? Is anything real? I don't know. This is mad. So let's go on to some other. I love this. This is my favorite thing to do, talk about this stuff. So let's have a look at what Jill's saying. Jill says we are closest we have been to the potential of Wakanda. There is movement and energy and awareness of what needs to be, but we need collective understanding and the right leaders. I really, really agree with that, actually, Jill.
Mm,
I think more and more people are awakening to this higher state of how we can really do things better and live better. But again, it comes down to who's driving it. And actually at the same time, we shouldn't render ourselves powerless and say, well, that leader has got a doesn't have many ethics or morals. And I've got to share a quote from Russell Brand which I loved, when he talks about sort of the people who have power and money and direct things, and he was saying that the air is thin up there, the morality is even thinner. I was like, classic, and
yeah.
there are these questions about that, but at the same time it's sort of like, well, hang on, we are also in this, we are creators, we are conscious creators, we have
Mm,
things to contribute, we are geniuses, so we can create the Wakanda, and we can do things to really, again, use technology and not let it use us. We can make conscious choices about which technology we engage with
mm,
and for what purpose. We can decide which part of us is acting at any given point. Is it my lower nature, my grumpy nature, my miserable, or is it my heart, my soul, my truth, my wisdom that can really engage with technology in a very powerful way to help everybody? But yeah, I think really, I think there's a risk where we say, and I know I do this, so I'm really learning myself as I'm doing this and talking this through, is there's a risk. We say, well, this person up there has all the power and the money to direct where things go. Actually, that's a very disempowering mindset. And it's not true. We are, like I said, we are all very powerful. We're all contributors. So actually, I choose today. I make this statement today to say that I am choosing to take my power back, and
mm,
rather than be used by the circumstances and the things that are going around and the idea, I choose to take my power back and say, well, how do I contribute? How do I make Wakanda?
yeah.
Maybe I can't
Mm,
help with
yeah.
making tech, but I can help develop people's consciousness, which is what I do. So that's my contribution, so that we can have more conscious beings using technology consciously. Hey, great, there's Wakanda. So maybe other people can bring in technology that's more conscious and doesn't drive addictions and all that stuff, and actually is better, and does things from a higher good and a higher place. And then people like us helping people develop their consciousness, now we can move together and make a wonderful world. And I think actually I'm really glad Jill said what she said there, because it really prompted me to reflect on the way I give my own power away, and
Mm.
actually know we're all very powerful and we get to create this together. It's not just up to big tech and whatever. Last comment from Jim: been there where I feel awake and I can't move. So he's had it. Yes, that's what it's in, that zone between awake and asleep. It's surprising how many people have had it, because I thought I was just weird. And then I spoke to quite a few people and they're like, I've had that. And I was like, why can't I wake up? It's quite terrifying, even when I know what's happening, because a part of me now knows when it's happening. It doesn't happen very often anymore, but it's very terrifying. But it's also amazing, because it makes me think, well, what is reality? What is
Mm.
consciousness? What am I? Is this all a total illusion? And if it is an illusion, then we can create a new illusion, one with Wakanda in it. Um, Helen, what would you like to say to close?
Well, I think the opportunity is for people to kind of make choices, isn't it? And I guess exactly like you're saying, that we can think about how we contribute and what we're involved in, and even if that's a kind of a sweep through your phone to look at all the apps that you've got, to say, do I even want these? Do I delete them? How are they serving me? And I think that's the thing, isn't it? How are they serving me, as how am I serving them?
Mm,
And to be mindful about what interaction you have with technology. Is it your choice, or are you being forced to use it? Like, my dad has never had a mobile phone ever. Not interested. He's switched off completely from technology, but I still find ways to get in touch with him. Like, there are ways, we have choices, and I'm not suggesting that we go as extreme as that, but like, even just before we connected on here, I was going through my apps going, oh my god, like I might have like logged onto that one once and gone, it's rubbish, but I haven't deleted it. So I haven't deleted. And does your data ever get completely deleted? Who knows?
mm,
But I guess, yeah, that's the opportunity, is to think about choices. And certainly for me, I switch my phone off about 9 o'clock at night, and leave it downstairs so that I don't interact with it.
oh,
And I think for me that's healthy.
I love that. Thank you. Um, I don't think I have any closing comment. I've just done my ramble about what is reality. Why are we here? What is this all? Helen, are you even real? Am I making this all up in my head? Welcome to my world, and welcome to our world. And I hope you've
Yes.
enjoyed being in our world. And we have overrun, but I think we kind of knew we were going to do that anyway.
Yeah.
But you know, it's been amazing. And yeah, thank you everybody who's joined us, who's commented, who's shared, who's watched. And if you're watching later, thank you for watching. And if you do watch later, still put your comments in there, because we will come back and we want to hear your answers to the questions and your views, because that's what this is about, right? It's about just discussing things and important topics and getting views out there. There's not like one truth, one right answer, one wrong, whatever. It's just we've all got our own views, and let's talk about them, which is what we love doing. So on that note, we will close. Thank you so much. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody. And maybe we'll see you for another live one day soon. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.